It's Wellness Wednesday. This Wellness Wednesday, I am going with a bit of a goofy title that is actually true. Hope. It's stupid and it works. And this was another one of these topic bled into a topic. It went one way, and like that's too like weird and specific. And so I started like, okay, this is broad enough that it will be helpful to enough people. And I'm unpacking my ideas of this because the idea of hope is one of these frustrating psychological concepts that it means different things to different people. So what hope means to me is the awareness that good things can happen, and it's worth putting some work in that direction. And this is different than a lot of the definitions I saw online, where it's an expectation of good things to come. And I don't think that's accurate, because we all know when something is a long shot, but we're like, oh, I hope, right? That's why it's hope for the best, plan for the worst. There's no way to go expect the best, plan for the worst. If you expect the best, why would you plan for the worst, right? Hope is not quite expect. Words matter. So, water. That's how I made hope work. Because it is being a little bit dumb. Hence, it's stupid, but it works. You can recognize the chance of failure. You can even realize the chance of failure is more likely than success. But you still believe it's worth trying. And so, you're like, how many resources do I want to devote to this based on the likelihood of a good outcome? And that's the difference between being hopeful to the point that, you actually are stupid, and recognizing that hope is stupid in a beneficial way. And that's the challenge a lot of people have with the concept of hope, or the execution of hope, is that we're taught that pessimism is intelligent. Knowing every way it could possibly go wrong. I mean, that sort of strategic planning is important, but you have to question, are you doing it to talk yourself out of trying? Or are you strategizing what could possibly go wrong to maximize your chances of success? Obviously, the former is demotivating. The latter is motivating. And that's what we want. We want motivation because it's easy. It's a low energy activity to do nothing, right? And it's really easy to say why something's not going to work. Now, sometimes it's not going to work. And just being absolutely, there's a difference between being hopeful and being reckless. If you keep going back into that bad relationship, hoping they'll be better, that's not good for you. On the other hand, if you set boundaries going, okay, I hope they'll respect them because that's a good indication that all is not lost. Hope doesn't mean expecting, right? You set a boundary, you have to be prepared that the person won't like it. And you have to be prepared to enforce that boundary, usually by, ending the conversation, getting up and leaving, something like that. Something to, because boundary busters won't respect your boundaries. Liking a boundary and respecting a boundary are not the same thing. And that's to me, the difference between hope and expectation. Because if you're hoping someone's going to say yes, but you recognize it's totally in their right to say no, you will have a different reaction than if you expect them to say yes. Because there's less disappointment involved in going, I hope they say yes, but they have every right to say no, and I need to respect it if they do, versus they won't have a problem with this, right? And then, boom, yes, they do. You're more likely to respond well if you stay in the realm of hope instead of expectation. But hope can still feel silly, right? Especially when times are really dark. The weird thing is, and I say this as somebody with a PTSD diagnosis, when things are dark, that's when you need hope the most. And again, it's not about expecting good things to just happen. It's going, okay, what can I control here? What can I reasonably make better? Okay, that's where I'm going to put my energy. I'm not going to throw good energy after bad. I'm not going to be a chump and let people walk all over me. And in moments where you're incredibly disappointed by someone or something, those are the moments where, you need hope to go, I need to set a boundary here. And that might mean the end of the friendship. But I'll make other friends. I hope. Right? This isn't working. I recognize this isn't working. I'm not going to stay stuck in, on a track where I can see the train light coming towards me just because I'm afraid that, jumping lines is going to be lonely. That keeps a lot of people stuck. It's a challenge to meet new people. It's even harder to make friends with new people. Some of it's luck. Some of it is work. You have to risk embarrassment in socializing with people. So by letting people see enough of yourself to accept you for you and decide they like you. I mean, I've said before, my making friends strategy is not to go out. I'm a terrible salesperson. I'm a great teacher. I'm a bad salesperson. So I'll just start doing something weird and, then people will come up and going, what weird thing are you doing, weirdo? And I'll be like, it's cool. And that's my, that's what works for me. And I've realized that I have to stop trying to be other things that I'm not, because I realize that's me being hopeless about people seeing the worth in the way I do things. I need to give people chances. And that's a thing that's really hard, right? Because you give people chances in the hopes it'll turn out well. The flip side of that is you have to not beat yourself up when they don't. Because it does hurt when you're rejected. It certainly hurts when people lie about you. It certainly extra hurts when people lie about you in public so they can make money for themselves. And stuff like that can make you never want to trust another person again. That's it. I'm never making friends with that kind of person. And you can't go through life that way. There's no single indication of a person, other than direct behaviors. Like if somebody's backstabbing other people, don't assume you're immune, right? But everybody's got flaws, and that's what makes it so challenging to go, how much of a risk should I take? What kind of risks shall I take? How do I know when it's a good sign with a flawed person or it's a bad sign? And to me, and I've had to think about this a lot this week, if there's a known, so like all right, this person has a habit of claiming I said things I didn't say and then denying I said things I did say. Well, putting myself in positions going forward where they can blame me for things to get themselves out of trouble, not the smartest move. That's being reckless, not hopeful. Whereas going, all right, I'm going to have a conversation with this person about, this behavior that's an issue for me. And I'm going to hope it goes well. Well, if it doesn't, there's your answer. It's disappointing, but that gives you a chance to cut it off before they can do real damage. As opposed to just ignoring the potential pitfall. That's not hope. That's conflict avoidance. And hoping things will work out does give you, it gives you motivation because you see a reason to put effort in. And it's like, calculated risks are still risks. They sometimes don't work out, but they're not the end of the world. It's like, all right, tried this. It's not working. Move on to the next thing. Whereas if you have no hope, you end up accepting bad behavior from other people that if you just exercise that hope and took steps towards better, you could be happier. You could feel more fulfilled. You could be around people who you trust more. And man, it's going on November, December, January, February, March, April, May. It's been we're going into past 6 months from Fucktober. And 2 of the 3 people involved in that have shown themselves to be exactly the reasons that I needed to step away from them. And those were examples where I hope they'd see reason and I hope they would regain better sense. But they didn't. And I knew that was a possibility, right? And so it's like, okay, I hoped, but did not expect. Therefore, I minimized the damage and maintained my reputation. And I've been self-gaslighting a lot lately about whether I'm too much of a hard ass about that. And I stopped and thought about it over the weekend. And it's like, you know what? No, because I'm listening to my gut. I'm listening to my instincts regarding whether a risk is I am comfortable taking and whether I will feel like I compromised my values by not setting a boundary right here and now. And, I've been disappointed in the outcomes, but I haven't been disappointed in the choice I made because, you can only be arm's length from so many shitty people before people start rightly thinking you might be a shitty person as well. And that's not the same as going, look, this person has stuff to work on, but I have reason to think in their heart they're a good person. Like I have hope for them there. And that's another thing, that if you're in social environments that don't practice hope, that's where you get cancel culture. That's where you get public shamings. Because, this whole idea of bludgeon someone on Blue Sky, grind them into the ground because they said one thing that was, came out the wrong way or was inadvisable or ill-informed. You're not coming from a place where you hope a person will really learn from something and improve, because there's no re-entry in that. They're just bad and they're bad forever. That's not persuasive. It just creates a culture of fear, and people don't learn well in a culture of fear. Whereas you're like, look, I think there's hope that people can learn something here. I have hope, that there are cheaper, more community-focused ways of helping people develop, good habits and improve their self-esteem and kind of understand why the way things are. If I didn't have hope for that, I wouldn't still be doing this, because my God, if one more damn guy throws that women are preferred and protected by society. Society prefers women, and women have inherent worth in a way that men don't. You get a little sick of that. And the only reason I keep having that conversation with various people is I do think that, I do hope they're coming from a good place and not just using me as a receptacle for their bitterness, because I'm an easy target in somewhat girl form. Do I expect shitty treatment? Yeah, it's YouTube. Do I hope for a better world? Yeah, it's the only reason I can keep doing this. I don't do content for the people that don't want to get it. I do content for people who, they might be confused about something, or they haven't had the opportunity to actually have a conversation about it. And, obviously some of those attempts are going to go horribly wrong. But, hope and forgiveness are intertwined. I said to somebody in a YouTube comment this week, be the change you want to see, not the status quo that hurts you. Phone. And you can't be the change you want to see without the hope that change is possible. And, these major social changes, they take about a decade. You can't just pop off, go, hey, we're going to do one protest and hey, everything changed, right? It takes more than raising awareness. You have to actually be persuasive and put the time in. And the data on how directionless and hopeless Gen Z is it's mind-boggling. Like, I think part of it is, that's the generation that grew up with school shooting stuff being the norm. How can you have aspirations? How do you have hope for the future when that and COVID and, all that stuff? I mean, COVID individual mileage may vary. Lockdown was an introvert's paradise. The freaking wildfires were worse for me because I couldn't go outside during those. I was literally stuck in the house. That was my limit, man. Because not being around people is one thing, but not going outside, that's a different story. So that one still stayed with me. And I guess if you lived in those downtown condos and the hallways were dangerous, yeah, a lot of people just stayed in their condo. But things are, very tumultuous right now. And the interesting thing is we were lectured. I remember it was 10th grade geography when I started hearing about the aging population and how there weren't going to be jobs and healthcare systems and pension plans were going to be strained to the breaking point, And it was all because the baby boomers were aging and going into retirement. It was going to be prolonged retirement, and there just weren't enough people to keep paying in to these social programs to comfortably keep it afloat. And for all of the blah blah about DEI and woke and all that stuff, that's really what it is. The various governments needed to take in immigrants, economic immigrants, so that there was enough of a tax base to pay for the boomers. Unfortunately, things like housing and infrastructure didn't keep up. Bad planning, but the reality that we need to replace population because birth rates are plummeting because it's too expensive to have bloody kids. But, there's going to be a wealth transfer, and things will get easier again. Things will get harder again. Things will get easier. Things will get harder. And they won't get easier and harder for everybody at the same time. But we can nudge things towards better instead of pounding them towards worse, right? And this is where hope comes in. Like, I have hope for people in sort of fandom and gaming spaces. I really hope that these groups don't have to be so toxic. There's a better way. And the reason I just come here and tell the truth, even though I know it's going to be unpopular, is in service of that. It's one thing to say, learn to handle disagreement, learn to handle, unpopular opinions. But if you can't do that yourself, if you knee jerk and dislike button, one, that's still engagement. It's dumb. But also, what are you doing? You're being the status quo that hurt you, not the change you want to see. And I do think a lot of this culture war stuff is just people not having hope anymore. And so all they want to do is hurt the other because they've given up hoping for better. And it really does affect your behavior. So unless you want to be that asshole, you have to find a way to have a little bit of hope so you don't just do the lowest common denominator behavior every time something hits you the wrong way. It's, the people actively, hoping for things to fail because, what? There's this rallying cry of, it'll change gaming, we'll take back gaming. No, you won't. No, you won't. If a major publisher collapses, that's not good for the industry. You want to encourage a publisher to do better, a development company to do better. And the way you do that is if there's any hope of pleasing you. And there's a problem in gaming right now where the most unpopular thing you can do is like something. You'll get tons of views and tons of likes by shitting on things. But, I've been testing this. You make videos going, no, I actually think this is pretty good. You draw such hate. And it's never, there's no substance to it. It's a woke game and it's woke. It's funny because the Last of Us video I did yesterday attracted haters from the other side of people who liked the original game. And I'm glad there are some people who are appeased. And I'm like, appeased? Really? Okay. there's no need to be shitty about things you don't like being popular. I started getting tired of Grand Theft Auto around Grand Theft Auto 4. I just found that game morose, and they got too big, and it took too long to get anywhere, and they started feeling more and more bloated. And if you like the games, that's cool, right? Like, I have the unpopular opinion of Oblivion being my favorite of, the modern Elder Scrolls games. So that game got shit on, and now it's a re-release, and everybody's like, oh, deep RPG mechanics. They're not that deep, but, those games have always been sandboxes more than RPGs. But yeah, there's a shit ton more role-playing in Oblivion because it more contains story. It was just a lot smaller because it was designed for consoles with the space limitations of the time. And now it's, of course, this massive, huge, bloated file. Like, it's 120 gigs or something like that. The download, it's massive. But, do I want Bethesda to fail? Just because I don't terribly enjoy their games as a rule? Well, no, because every so often they come out with something like New Vegas or Dishonored, the first one. And it's like, okay, I enjoyed those games, so I'm gonna hope that they'll take the money they're making from this, Crisis on Infinite remasters and put it into something where they actually take their time and rediscover their creativity and make something good. So I'm gonna conduct myself accordingly. And not be an asshole about it, right? That's how it works. It's all about how hope versus hopelessness changes your behavior. And if you stop and you look at these people who are so hopeless that all they'll do is lash out online and complain about women being protected and various things, woke and all that stuff. Nobody likes those people. They might not say anything, but people are sick of that word because of the misery porn. Whereas if you're like, okay, as I do, I believe we need to recenter so that there's more messages that let men know they matter too, and it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. And you conduct yourselves accordingly. And I mean, I'm rapidly getting to my limit about how much shit I can eat. But I keep telling myself, like, don't let them break you. Step back, take breathers, because I do honestly believe better is possible. No guarantee it'll come. But I do want to be able to say, when all's said and done, that at least I tried. And advocating for men is you eat a lot of fucking shit. And there's so little appreciation. Because it's never enough. And yet you're still a gender trader. But I do think it's important because, there's a lot of flashing red lights. And we can either go, it's hopeless, we have to burn it all down, or go, okay, what are some things I can do? And I know it's an uphill battle because, the manosphere is so entrenched. And they have so much money and so much influence and so much more of a head start. But I am seeing other people creating, content for men and messaging for men that is hopefully going to enrich their lives instead of just putting them in a cycle where they keep getting rejected and shoved back to the manosphere because it's all about making money. No, we can't just give up. And knowing the odds are small doesn't mean the odds are zero. And if nobody ever put a little effort into something that was a worthwhile long shot, we wouldn't have innovation. And that's why, as the video says, hope is stupid, but it works. There's no alternative to hope if you want to get anything done. If you don't believe something is possible, even a little bit, you're not going to be motivated to really putting effort towards it. So, you don't have to go, I definitely think it's going to happen. It's, let's give it a shot. That's what hope is. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Your support is greatly, greatly appreciated and needed right now. Thanks for watching, and be well.